Section 39 of Essays on Art. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Essays on Art by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, translated by Samuel Gray Ward. Section 39. Ancient and Modern, Part 2. Consider the school of Karachi. Here was a groundwork of talent, earnestness, industry, and consecutive advantages. Here was an element for the natural and artistic development of admirable powers. We see a whole dozen of excellent artists produced by it, each practicing and cultivating his peculiar talent according to the same general idea, so that it hardly seems possible after times should produce anything similar. Let us consider, moreover, the immense stride made by the highly gifted Rubens into the world of art. He, too, was no son of earth. Look at the rich inheritance he was heir to, from the old masters of the 14th and 15th century through all the admirable artists of the 16th, at the close of which he was born. Again, think of the crowd of Dutch painters of the 17th century, whose great abilities found development now at home, now south, now north, until we can no longer deny the incredible sagacity with which their eye pierced into nature, and the facility with which they have succeeded in expressing her legitimate charm, so as to enchant us everywhere. Nay, in proportion as we possess the same qualities, we are willing for a time to limit ourselves exclusively to the examination and attraction of these productions, and are far from blaming those amateurs who are contented with the possession and enjoyment of this class of pictures exclusively. In the same way, we could bring 100 examples in support of our assertion. To see distinctly, to apprehend clearly, to impart with facility, these are the qualities that enchant us. And when we maintain that all these are to be found in the genuine Greek works, united with the noblest subjects, the most exalted import, the most unerring and perfect execution, it will be seen why it is we always begin and end with them. Let each one in his own way be a Greek, but let him be a true Greek. The same is true of literary merit. The comprehensible is always the first to seize upon us, and give us complete satisfaction. If we take the works of one and the same poet, we shall find some that seem to indicate a degree of laborious effort, and others again affect us like natural products, because the talent was commensurate with the form and import. And once more, it is our firm belief that although any age may give birth to the fairest talent, it is not given to all to be able to develop it in its perfect proportions. To conclude, we bring forward the instance of a modern artist to show that we do not make too high demands, but are satisfied with works and subjects of a limited nature. Sebastian Bourdon, an artist of the 16th century, whose name every amateur is familiar with, but whose talent in its genuine direction has never received due praise, has left 4 plates etched by his own hand, making a complete series of The Flight into Egypt. In relation to the subject, we have to bear in mind that the child is one of singular importance, of the most ancient princely descent, whose destiny it is to have an immense influence upon the world in after times, through whom the old is to be destroyed and the new built up in the place of it. This child is born in the arms of a most tender mother under the protection of a prudent old man, and escapes and is saved by divine assistance. The various scenes in this significant action have been represented 100 times and have given birth to works of art that have called for our highest admiration. We give the subjoined description in order that the amateur who has not these etchings at hand might be able in some measure to decide as to the justice of our commendation. Joseph appears always as the principal personage. Perhaps the pictures were intended to adorn a chapel of that saint. 1. The scene appears to be the stall at Bethlehem, immediately after the departure of the three pious magi, for beneath you still see the two well-known beasts. In a room above you see Joseph at rest, making his bed of the pack, decorously enveloped in folds of drapery, and leaning against the high saddle, upon which the Holy Child is seen moving as if just awake. The mother, close beside him, is deeply engaged in prayer. In contrast with this quiet daybreak scene appears an angel flying towards Joseph, pointing with animated action to the country where the sight of temples and obelisks suggests a dream of Egypt. Carpenter's tools lie neglected on the ground. 2. The family is halting amid ruins after a heavy day's journey. Joseph appears to get a little rest standing as he leans against the sturdy, heavy-laden beast feeding from a stone trough. But an angel comes behind him, plucks his mantle, and points to the sea beyond. Joseph, looking upward and pointing at the same time to the beast's fodder, seems to ask for a short space for the animal to bait. The Holy Mother, busied about the child, looks round astonished at the strange dialogue, for the heavenly messenger seems to be invisible to her. 3. This picture expresses admirably the hasty pilgrimage. They are leaving behind them on the right a large town situated on a hill. Keeping close to the bridle, Joseph leads the beast down a path which appears the steeper because the eye does not trace it farther, and the sea appears directly behind the foreground. The mother, sitting on the saddle, takes no heed of danger. Her looks are absorbed by the sleeping child. The speed of the fugitives is happily indicated by their having already passed through the greater part of the picture, and being just on the point of disappearing on the left side. 4. Here, in entire contrast to the above, we see Joseph and Mary reposing by the stones of a well in the middle of the picture. Joseph, standing behind and leaning over, points to a prostrate idol in the foreground, and seems to be explaining this significant sign to the Holy Mother. She is earnest and attentive, holding the child at her breast, but you do not see what she is looking at. The disburthened beast browses in the background on the rich green boughs. In the distance we recognize the obelisks that were referred to in the dream. The palm trees show that we have arrived in Egypt. All this the artist shows us in so narrow space with light but happy strokes. Full and penetrating thought, spirited life, apprehension of the indispensable, omission of the unimportant, a light and rapid touch in the execution. Such are the qualities we admire in these plates. And of more than these there is no need, for here as well as anywhere do we find the end of art attained. Parnassus is a Mont Serrat, allowing of many settlements on its various stages. Let each one go and look about him, and he will find some place, be it summit or nook. End of section 39.
Section 40 of Essays on Art. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Arden. Essays on Art by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Translated by Samuel Gray Ward. Section 40. Landscape Painting. 1. General Idea. Severe mode of thinking of artists. Whence derived. The true artist is devoted to the significant, and for this reason the remains of the most ancient representations of landscape are all great, manifold, and elevated in the highest degree. Background in Mount Etna's triumphal procession. Titian's landscapes. Height. The element of significance in mountains and buildings. From this cause comes steepness, distance, the element of the agreeable, whence comes openness of view around. This describes all those who have found their subjects in the Tyrol, Salzburg, and elsewhere. Albert Dürer and the rest of the early Germans have all something of severity. The strangeness of their subjects lessens their freedom of hand, or else they prefer such subjects because their minds have grown to harmonize with them. Thus they cannot represent nature, or even copy scenes, without falling into the strange and becoming mannered. In Paul Bril, this is softened, but he too loves a high horizon, and is never without rocky masses in the foreground, and distances full of variety. Appearance of the Dutch painters. Before Rubens, Rubens himself. After Rubens. As an historical painter, his merit was not so much in seeking the significant, as in the power of imparting it to all subjects. In this respect, his landscapes stand alone. There is no want of steep mountains and boundless distances, but he also knows how to impart something of his spirit to the most quiet, simple, and rustic objects, giving consequence and attractiveness to the least important. Rembrandt's realism in regard to objects, light, shadow, and keeping, constitute his ideal. Bolognese school, the Carracci, Grimaldi. In Claude Lorraine, nature reveals itself for eternal. The Poussins bring to it earnestness, height, the so-called heroic, impulse to their successors. Finally, deviation in portrait landscapes. 2. General idea. Landscapes, in their origin subordinate to historical pictures, everywhere a steep character, because without height and depth, the distance cannot be made interesting. Manly character of the early times. Early art always full of portent, whence the landscapes have an earnest and menacing air. Demand for richness gives rise to high points of view, wide prospects. Examples: Bruegel, Paul Bril, highly cultivated, intellectual, and full of variety. See his 12 months and 6 plates, and many engravings after him. Jodocus Montper, Roland Severi. Hermitages, gracefulness, gains ground by degrees. The Carracci, Domenichino, Claude Lorraine. Expansion over a clearer world, delicacy, effect of atmospheric appearances on the mind. Nicolas Poussin, Gaspard Poussin. Heroic landscape, represents an earth put to no use, a broken country without any tillage. Earnest, not precisely idyllic, but simple men. Decent dwellings, but without comfort. Safety of inhabitants secured by towers and castles. A school based on this idea, perhaps the only one of which it can be said that the pure idea and mode of view of the masters was handed down without any remarkable change. Glaubert, Francois Millet, Francois de Neve, Sebastian Bourdon. Transition from the ideal to the real through topography. Marion's wide horizon views. The two sorts flourish together. Final transition to views brought about principally by the English, similar to that from history to portrait. Later English, persevering in the connoisseurship of Claude and Poussin, leaning toward views, but delighting in and practicing atmospheric effects in their compositions. Opposed to this stands the clear, strong Hackert manner, his remarkable drawings from nature with lead pencil and pen, on white paper, to which he gave force and keeping by the use of sepia. Studies of the English, on blue and gray paper, in black chalk, slightly tinted with crayons, a little misty, but well composed and neatly executed. End of section 40.